Sam here, your mother of Valkyries and host of the Sword and the Ribbon podcast. Today, Jessie Vallee is joining me on the podcast. Jessie is an author and currently works as a forestry technician and has always loved wildlife and the outdoors. She has a diploma of college studies in environmental and wildlife management. She paired that passion with her love of all things fantasy to write her first novel, Frost and Shadows. Hi, Jessie.
Hi, Sam.
Thanks so much for being on the podcast today.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. Can you tell the listeners a little bit about yourself, like what's on the dust jacket of your book?
It's funny you say that because on the dust jacket of my book, people tend to think, is that you? And no, by the way, it is not me on the cover of my book. But I am a Canadian born and raised, all things passion for books. I used to be called a readaholic back when I was in high school. But my primary passion, as you mentioned, is the wildlife and outdoors. So I went on to study the environmental aspects. And today in my free time, you'll find me constantly out planning camping and hiking trips, paddle boarding, spending time with my dog, and whenever I can, working on my book.
Amazing. So you live that full outdoorsy life.
I really do.
Do you spend all, like, even in the cold? Like, it's just so cold there. From a Californian.
Yes, it is. I've yet to do winter camping, though it's on my list. But yes, I still go hiking. With my job, I'm a forestry technician, so I'll also be out snowmobiling and snowshoeing in the forest as well for my day job.
That's so fun. Like, you get to drive a snowmobile for work.
Yeah, and in the summer, I get to do an ATV.
Oh, that's so fun. So before we get started, I have a couple of fun questions for you.
Sounds good.
What are you currently reading?
I am currently reading Ruin by John Gwynne. I think you pronounce his last name. It's the third book in the Faithful and the Fallen series.
That's the one with the big dragon on the cover, right?
I don't know if it has an alternate cover, but for me, they each have like a different type of weapon on the covers. But I think it is very Brandon Sanderson style.
Okay. I'd say I recognize the author name. I can't like pair the names to the books yet. Do you have a favorite book or series?
Favorite series is definitely the Throne of Glass series by Sarah J. Maas. I go crazy for it. It's always my top recommendation. You have to read this and just get people hooked into it. I love the development of the characters, the character development. I just find it crazy and mind-blowing how the first few books completely sets you up for the others, and you just never see things coming constantly. You're at the edge of your seat, and your mind is constantly getting blown. But I also have to, if I have to do a standalone, I can't not recommend Babel by R.F. Kuang. It's just phenomenal. It teaches you so much. I think it deserves the world of recognition.
I wholeheartedly agree. I really love Babel. Babel, I don't know.
Babel, neither do I.
I don't know which way to say it, but it is good either way. I did do the audiobook because I loved that they actually pronounced a lot of the languages for you. And I was like, I would have never been able to read that.
Yeah, I was just about to make a joke and be like, we're readers. We know how to spell things, but we don't know how to pronounce them.
Nope, never. Never, ever. But it's okay. And like that, but that's why audiobooks exist to help us along the way, hoping that they pronounce it correctly. But yes, I agree. That book is so good. And I don't even know how to elaborate on it without like giving everything away.
Yeah. It has the historical factor, it has the fantasy factor, and then it just teaches you so much also about what people went through in the past. And then as a bilingual myself, I speak English and French. I love the language factor, and it's really cool because one part of Babel is is that they have like these spell things based off of two words that are supposed to mean the same thing, but there's something that gets lost in translation along the way. And I immediately thought of one for English French, even though in that book French is considered one of the lesser languages. But it's like home and maison. In French, there's no true word for home, like that hominess in it. The home is where the heart is. Like, home isn't just a place. There is a sentimental factor associated with that word in English. Whereas in French, there's no direct translation. The closest we could get is maison for house, or chez moi, where I live. So I really think that in that book, they'd be able to do like one of those little spells to incorporate the homey factor of a place.
I love that. I love the like French little tidbits. But yes, I agree. Like, there's so many, just the languages down to historical pieces that were woven in. Like you said, like, you're bilingual, mental health, so much. Like, and I lost my word for it. Biracial. Like, so I understood some of the characters, and like, especially, I forgot the main character's name, but like, he can fit in, he's passing. And I was like, oh, I 100% agree with that. I understand how that feels, where you actually sit in between two cultures and two races. So that was my little tidbit of that. My takeaway. So if you could live in any fantasy world ever created, which would you choose?
So if I can be a nerd for a second.
Look, yes.
I will always choose the world of Pokemon, if asked that. I mean, how can I not? I mean, you're a kid, you get to adventure, you have like these cool Pokemon with powers traveling by you as your companions. What is there not to love about it?
Right? Like, okay, wait, I have to ask, what is your starter Pokemon? And then which is like your ultimate like Pokemon that you like would carry with you?
Ooh, okay, a starter Pokemon, because I'm so foresty and naturey, I love Bulbasaur. And for my main Pokemon, it would be Absol. I think I fell in love with it in one of the movies where they really explained that Absol is the natural disaster Pokemon, and he's just so misrepresented, where a lot of people always thought that Absol, when they came, bad things happen because of its presence, when really it can predict bad things happening, and it goes to try and warn people. So it just got a bad rep, and it's misunderstood, but really it's just trying to help people. And I just kind of, I don't know, I like that backstory.
I love that. I didn't know that. Okay, so if it wasn't Pokemon, what would it be?
If it wasn't Pokemon and we're going strictly from the books, then I'd probably have to choose the world of Allegasia, I think it's pronounced, from the Aragon books. High fantasy has just always had a thing for me. There's dragons, I'm in. There's elves and dwarves and magic and people with swords. Like, what is there not to love?
Right? That ticked all the boxes. Sign me up. Let's go.
It's literally not missing anything. It has everything I would want from a fantasy world.
Yeah, I haven't actually read Aragon yet. My sister read it, so I didn't touch it yet.
I recommend it. I would have probably said the world of Fourth Wing, but they're not doing so well in that world right now, so survival rate.
No, that's fair. That's completely fair. I mean, Aragon's like, it's actually completed now because he just came out with that last one last year.
Yeah, it's supposed. I haven't read the latest one, but it's supposed to be following what was the previous villain's story. So I'm looking forward to that point of view.
Well, I will. They're on my list. I'll just get to them eventually. Okay, so we're gonna dive back into Sarah J. Maas. Who is your favorite Artron sister?
Definitely Nesta. I did not like her at the beginning. I don't think many of us liked her at the beginning. But to be fair, if I had to relate to any of the sisters, it would be her. She had so much responsibility on her plate, and it took her a while to grow into it. And of all the sisters, I find she's the only one that really fought to, I don't know, she became a warrior. Like that's what appeals to me the most in fantasy characters. They have a bunch of growth. They went through a bunch of hardships, but still learned to push through. And Nesta really just learned to become badass and fall into her role.
I think that's why most of us are here, right? We fell in love with Nesta's journey, and that's what created Valkyrie Squad. So And that brings me to my next question. Would you recommend Valkyrie Squad?
Absolutely. I'm constantly recommending Valkyrie Squad. I recommend it to my friends. I've gotten someone on Bookstagram to sign up for it. Yeah, yesterday I was in a live with a fellow author who we're both doing Kickstarters right now. And the fellow author was just talking about wanting to be as badass as the characters in the book. And of course I had to bring up Valkyrie Squad. And then she's like, oh yeah, I heard that this was some kind of event happening in Nashville. And I'm like, yes, be there. And she's in Texas. So I'm like, you have to sign up for it. Be there for me because I can't be there.
I know, yeah, we have an event in Nashville and Texas and Utah. So, I mean, your friend can come in Texas. When you were talking about the stuff earlier about being like outdoorsy, I was like, oh my God, you should be coming to one of the outdoorsy events this year.
I know. I just need to save up for a plane ticket and all that, but it is so on my bucket list. I'm so sad that I wasn't able to go to the last event where you guys climbed the mountain and my heart broke.
Oh, that was a trip, man. This episode is sponsored by Bookish Babes Retreat. Have you ever wanted to attend Camp Half-Blood? Immerse yourself into a world of literary wonders and bring your favorite books to life. Join this year's Bookish Babe Retreat in Van, Texas, September 6th to the 8th, for an experience like no other, where you'll be surrounded by fellow bibliophiles, captivating events, and the chance to forge lifelong friendships. From author meet and greets to a book swap library to s'mores and stories with narrators and even a gossip of mermaids pool party, the retreat offers a haven for those seeking to indulge in their love for books. And did I mention I'll be there too, and teaching sword fighting? But it's not just about the stories on the pages. The Bookish Babes Retreat is a sanctuary where you can build connections that will endure beyond the final chapter. Engage in unique group challenges, exciting games, and collaborative activities that will deepen bonds with fellow retreat attendees. Escape the confines of reality and let the Bookish Babes Retreat transport you to a world where books are cherished, imagination knows no bounds, and the joy of reading is celebrated. Head to the website bookishbabesretreat.com for more information and to grab your ticket today. And I can't wait to see you there. So, Jessie, what made you decide to join Valkyrie Squad?
I've always wanted to join a type of combat-based training system because I've been reading books since I was young. I've always been inspired by the strong warrior female characters in the books, and especially as a teenager, I envisioned myself like that, and I've always wanted to do it myself. And then once it became evident that my publication of the book I wrote was becoming a thing and I started the editing process, I really thought that now is the time to do it. It's going to help my writing style because I could relate to my character. I understand the training program they're going through. And at the same time, it helps your mental health being in these training programs and doing it regularly. You look forward to it. You feel good about yourself. And I needed that.
Not a writer, but I write workouts. That's about the extent. But when you're in your writing process and say you hit kind of just your writer's block or just a little lull creativity of whatever, do you go and work out and just kind of reboost that? Does it help boost any of that creativity?
I work out, but not in the home workouts. More I go out and hike, and being out in nature tends to clear my mind, and just that little form of exercise. Or I might do a jog outside. Anything that is outside related that is also a good workout is like an instant solution to everything in my life.
I mean, it makes sense, especially for you, for just being so nature-based. But yes, it is very much proven to help boost your entire mental state, just moving your body. So can you give listeners who haven't read your book a quick synopsis of it without spoilers, obviously?
Frost and Shadows is a contemporary fantasy. So it is set in the contemporary world, if we're being more specific, Ontario, Canada. And in this version of the world, a small percentage of the population is born with powers. So either blessed with a gift from angels or cursed with powers from demons. And those that are born blessed their life is entirely dictated for them. They're immediately shift off to the Institute once it becomes aware that they have these powers, and they're grown to serve the community. But this is all decided for them. And the protagonist, Emma Davis, she's been running from this her entire life in order to stay with her mother. She doesn't want to lose that freedom. She doesn't want to abandon her mom. But unfortunately, she ends up having to join the Institute irregardless. And she finds herself begrudgingly liking the situation because for the first time in her life, she's surrounded by people that are like her. She's able to be herself. But as events begin to unfold, she discovers her very first cursed human. And it just becomes this big event of, do you follow your morals or do you be what society wants you to be?
I love that like deeper meaning. And I did read it, so I was like, yes, I like the themes and just the journey that Emma took or is taking, because it's still an active series.
Yes, when I wrote the book, I really wanted to write a protagonist because the book is rated young adult, so I did want someone for people to be inspired by, someone to be a role model.
Love that. Would you say it's kind of like the book that you would wish you were reading when you were a teenager?
Absolutely. 100%. I'd love to have added this to my hundreds of books that I read in high school.
Yep. I feel that completely. What was your inspiration for the book?
So, as I mentioned, I really wanted to write something that was inspiring. I started writing the book not in the hopes of publishing, but just to pass the time. At the time, I had a contract that involved a lot of sitting around and doing nothing for many hours. And because I'm someone who reads a lot, of course, I have a lot of stories in mind, a lot of sources of inspiration. And I just started writing to pass the time. But while I was writing, because this was only for me and this wasn't for the world originally, I did want that inspiring factor. I wanted all the fun elements of powers and good and bad, but I wanted something uplifting where there's a challenge, but you're able to overcome it and you're able to follow your heart in the end.
Amazing. I would say, if I have the timeline correct, the Frost and Shadows came out before you joined Valkyrie Squad.
Okay, I started the publication process before I joined Valkyrie Squad, but by the time it was published, I was a member of Valkyrie Squad. So yeah, it took 9 months for me to fully publish the book. So I joined Valkyrie Squad about halfway through that publication process. And then the book published May of 2023, at which point I think I repetitively completed the first 2 months of the Valkyrie program.
Yes, that's pretty common. Are you in process of writing the second book?
Yes, I am. I'm a few chapters in. I have it all plotted out. I'm super excited for it because unlike the first book where I just went with the flow because I was just passing the time, and of course I did go through a bunch of editing processes afterwards, but this one I fully plotted it out and I'm super excited for it and where it goes. Whether or not it gets published is going to be something else because as with all self-publication processes, it can get a bit it's expensive. So I need to make sure that I have the funds to publish it. But fortunately, I did finish the first book where it can end there and it can be read as a standalone. It's not necessary to continue, but I do have plans for book 2 and I'm hoping to get that out there.
Amazing. So I have to ask, because you joined Valkyrie Squad during this whole process, has it helped you write and get into the mindset of your character for development?
Oh, absolutely. 100%. First of all, I didn't realize how heavy even like the smaller swords are.
Yes. Yeah.
Like all of a sudden I have this prop sword that I'm training with at home and I'm like, oh my god, this isn't even made of like metal or in Emma's case, ice. Like,
yeah.
I can just imagine the strength and training that's required to go through it. This isn't something that you practice every once in a while. You have to really get into that daily mindset. And I love that Valkyrie program really highlights that we're not just here to do combat exercises and drills. You're also training the strength, the core, the balance. And that's something that's required of any warrior training.
Exactly. And all I can picture is Emma on the ice and the immense amount of balance that it takes to try to fight on the ice or running. There were so many scenes that she's just hauling ass. And I'm like, yes, I would have eaten it.
I have a particular scene in mind for this, 100%.
Yep. I would have collapsed. That's not happening. I have okay balance with all of the training, but put it on ice, it's not happening.
Yeah, thankfully she was around ice her entire life, and it's no difficulty for her at this point.
Yeah, I would say she's got a little home turf advantage.
Absolutely, and she uses it to her advantage.
Exactly, she does so much. But no, like you said, having that, all the aspects of training to help her become a warrior, to help us become warriors. So how do you choreograph your fight and action scenes?
I'm very visual. When I think of something, there is a whole movie going out in my mind. So I like to put myself in Emma's shoes. Okay, she is strong and badass, yes, but a lot of the opponents that she faces in this book is a lot heavier than her. And she, when I put myself in the position of Emma when I'm imagining these scenes, I realize that she does not have the strength advantage, even though she is a strong woman. So I have to try and picture, okay, what kind of moves is she using in order to get the advantage? So, for example, one of the very first fight scenes in the book, she's up against a bear. And when the bear swipes at her and she doesn't think she can dodge, instead of taking the blow head on, what's the word for it? She has to put her sword at an angle for it to get deflected and roll off of her. So instead of taking it head on, the weight gets distributed and it moves to the side.
Yes. I understand what you're saying. So yes, it's repositioning the weight and the distribution of it so that she's still meeting the attack.
But she isn't getting squashed.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, so a lot of how I picture this is Emma has to use her small size to her advantage. She has to be faster than her opponents. And when she can't, she has to know how to still get out of it alive.
Yes. And you did a beautiful job describing all of those scenes in the book. I'm a harsh critic. So I'm such a harsh critic.
Well, then I'm honored.
So on top of your descriptive fight scenes and choreography, you also are super descriptive in your landscapes. Do you actually pull from your environmental and wildlife management degree?
All the time, and to the extent where I wonder if I'm doing it a bit too much. So there will be too many times where I'm talking about a tree species or a specific bird and its call or this type of animal. I think I was reviewing one of my works at one point, and there's an animal that was in torpor, as we call it. It's not hibernation, but it's you go into sleeping periods, and then you go, squirrels go into torpor. You sleep for a few weeks, and then as it warms up a little bit, then you'll go out and restock your food, eat, go back to sleep for a while. But most people don't know this, and I'm really trying not to get technical in my books because I realize that my audience is just the wider audience. They don't have the same degree as me. So I want to captivate them and get them just as passionate in the wildlife and the environment as me without losing them on technical terms.
If there were technical terms in there, I might have just glossed right over it or used the Kindle and the dictionary feature, the Wikipedia feature. I don't fully remember those words, but your descriptive sceneries and landscapes were beautiful. It was so well written that I could picture the landscapes. And I was like, okay, I've never been to Canada. Well, that's a lie. I have been to Canada. I've been to Vancouver. But I was there for a day, but like I haven't like explored all that. I've only seen it on social media, and I was like, I can picture everything you're writing, and it was so descriptive. I was like, wow, this is quite the landscape. And to me, at least, when I was reading it, like seeing kind of that high fantasy aspect was pulled in of like how descriptive they get in their descriptions of locations and landscapes.
Yeah, that's actually one of the main positive feedback points that I get from my readers. And that's one of the main reasons why I really wanted to produce Frost and Shadows into an audiobook, because as soon as people start telling me that the imagery and the descriptors are really vivid, well, why not take that a step further? Because hearing that read out to you is like, there's no way you cannot picture the scenes in your mind.
Exactly. Yeah, it was very, very beautiful. Don't feel bad about your technical terms, okay? Don't feel bad at all. There's times even watching my own videos and like editing them, and I'll throw out like a big word and I'm like, whatever. We're just going to keep going. Sometimes you'll get a definition, sometimes you don't.
But the fun part about it is if they're interested enough, they'll look it up, and it's a teaching opportunity too.
Exactly. I mean, when I word vomit them out, I see it as a teaching opportunity. Like, you're going to learn what this thing means. But I agree. Like, there's several books I've read that I'm like, oh, okay, like, what is this? And I have to go look it up. Or they made up their own word and I go look it up and I'm like, oh, I was really interested. It's not real.
Yeah, this is kind of embarrassing, but the word mezzanine comes up often in some of the Sarah J. Maas books, and I didn't know what a mezzanine was, and I had to look it up. And I realized, oh, wow, I could have used that when describing one of the scenes from the library in the Institute. Like, that's literally what what I was describing.
I only know mezzanine because I go to the theater often, so I'm like, yes, the mezzanine.
I learned a new word.
We always learn new words when we're reading all these books. It's all good. So how did you come up with the magic system and the powers for the book?
I love the idea of everyone having their own unique power to them. That's something that I really enjoy. And I just read too many. Okay, all the main characters in my book are elementalists. To be fair, they all have a power specific to a certain element of nature. But I love that in my book, every character has their own unique powers, whether it's connected to horses or you get visions, or like at one point during one of the final chapters, I think I mentioned about like a dozen different powers that are being shown at once. And I love the idea of it because everyone is just so unique, and seeing that reflected in the characters is a great thing. And I like the idea of the good versus evil aspect as well. In the world building, you have to explain where these powers come from, how they get to be. So for incorporate that into the good and evil aspect, having the powers of the good people come from angels, and then of the so-called bad guys from demons, is a great way to depict that. There's a whole backstory of that, and if I can get book 2 out to you guys, we go into further detail and exploration of this, which is really fun. So I look forward to getting that out to you guys. I just wanted something that was unique, but people would also find really fun.
Yeah, like I love learning all the like deeper bits of the magic system and the powers and who has what and how they get what they get. So you describe a small meditation exercise in your book. I have always used it in the winter to center myself when I just need a moment to breathe. I focus on the snow around me, taking note of each and every tiny snowflake that sits on the ground and on the trees. Millions of them. I slowly breathe in and out while focusing on them. Is this something you practice as well? Because it was so eloquently written and described.
Thank you. I have always done this thing since I was young, where if I was stressed out or something's happening in my life, or maybe I just have a headache, I will go out and find a bunch of trees, and I will just listen to the rustling of the leaves, the squirrels scurrying around, the birds singing. And I kind of wanted to incorporate that into this moment with Emma. And ever since joining Valkyrie Squad, where the mind stilling happens, I have kind of taken that a step further in my own personal life, because they'll always mention, listen, I think at the end of the mind stilling videos, they always say, listen to the sounds around you, get more in tune to your surroundings again. And I like focusing specifically on the nature elements around me, especially like I live in a very forested area. So if I can tune into these things, it calms me so much and makes me feel closer to the world. And it's very healing. And I did want to depict that in that moment with Emma.
I love that. And it was so like Valkyrie aligned too. I was like, oh my God, this is cool.
Oh yeah, 100%. And I wrote that before I joined Valkyrie Squad. So I mean, I think maybe I could have even gone more in depth since starting doing the mind stilling exercises with you guys.
I think there's room for book 2.
Absolutely.
So what is the process like to self-publish a book and then go on to produce your own audiobook? You kind of like teased us with it.
Self-publishing is a process. You are doing all of the work yourself. There are a million aspects to it. You have to go through the developmental editing, the copyright, the copy editing, the proofreading. You have to get your copyright license. You have to do the design, both of the cover and of the interior. You have to get all that formatting in. You have to start doing your marketing. You have to figure out all your distribution with your retailers. And then for me, it was a 9-month period of almost every single day. I had hours of work to do on something after I got home from my day job. And now it is published, and I am in the midst of doing an audiobook. It's a lot more simple now that the entire book is written. It's just a matter of hiring a narrator that you think is a great fit for your book. And thankfully with me anyways, my narrator also has all the tools and experience to do all the production elements of the audiobook as well. So it's a very easy process of you hire someone, they take care of all the work for you, and then it's out there and available. There might be some authors that they have the narrator and then they have to hire a separate company that does the mastering of the audio file. But even then, it's a lot more simple than the publication of the book itself, because most of the work is already done at this point. It's just, again, a matter of finance.
And that makes sense. I know you have your Kickstarter on right now. I got an email that it's closing in a couple days, correct?
Yes, and yesterday it just met its goal, so this audiobook is happening.
Congratulations! Oh my God!
Thank you.
That's so exciting. Oh, I'm so proud of you.
Thank you so much. I'm amazed by all the support this has had, and I think that's just further affirmation that those who have read my book love it, because the amount of people that have been sharing my videos and sending messages is overwhelming in the best way possible. So it shows that the people that read my book know that this has to happen because they want it to be shared with a wider audience. And the people that haven't read my book are interested enough to back this incredible project.
I love that there's such a big community that is supporting authors like yourself that can help. And I love supporting indie authors a lot. So I'm glad that you did get, because I did support your Kickstarter as well.
Oh, thank you.
I don't know if I put it I don't Kickstarter enough or do campaigns enough that I'm like, did it show anonymous? Did it say my name? I'm not sure. I don't know what I did. I clicked all the buttons. That's all that matters. But I did support, but I love like supporting authors where I can and purchasing copies and just helping out. So I'm glad that it's coming true. You're welcome.
Yes, this community is incredible.
So we have aspiring writers. Do you have any tips for beginning writers?
My number one tip for writers in all cases is to begin with writing for yourself. Stop thinking of I'm writing in order to publish a book. Stop thinking I'm writing in order to succeed and sell copies. If you're writing a book, remember that you're doing this for you. It is something you enjoy. This is your story and you want to get it down on paper. Start with that. Don't worry about the rest. And then once it's done, then you can start worrying about all the extra stuff that comes with it.
I love that. And I think I'm like, oh, I could just take that piece of information and like apply that to like every piece of my life, anyone's life. So I think we all need that reminder sometimes. So one last question. Are there any parts of you or your story that you decided to write as part of Emma and her story?
The wildlife aspect. It is just such an integral part of who I am as a person. I had to incorporate it into the book. I wanted Emma to love it just as much as I do. And because Frost and Shadows is written in first person point of view, it would only make sense that Emma would need to know what I know in order to put the descriptors as I do, because would just any other 17-year-old be able to know that that's a birch or I'm listening to a chickadee right now? Not necessarily. So I really wanted to include those descriptors and imagery points, but the protagonist needed to have that knowledge as well. And it was a joy writing a character that loved wildlife just as much as I do.
So this week's piece of Cauldron Blessed Wisdom is from Jessie. Take it away.
Your Cauldron Blessed Wisdom this week is to remember that you are the master of your fate. Do something that you love. It's not to please others, to prove anything, or even to succeed. Do what you love simply for you, because it is something that you enjoy, and all of the other little strings attached are secondary. Your action item for this episode is to do something you love or think that you might love. Too often we shove these things aside for a variety of reasons, but not this week. Make a list of things that you like to do. This can be signing up for a new class you're interested in, going out to a movie or museum, doing that hobby you're interested in that you never have the time to do, or are afraid you'll fail at, or maybe even as simple as taking some time for yourself. Whatever the passion, new or old, remember, you're doing this for you.
That wisdom was fated for this episode. Thank you.
I think so too.
So thank you so much for coming on the podcast today, Jessie.
It's been my absolute pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Of course. And until next time, all you listeners out there, remember, be strong, kick ass, and be fucking magical every day. This episode was produced by Bex Castro, Mia Garlock, and Carolyn McMorrin. And special thanks to Jessie Vallee for joining this episode. You can connect with her on Instagram, TikTok, or Facebook at JVALLEEAUTHOR. Special thank you to Taylor Ash for creating the music of this podcast. And thanks for listening to The Sword and the Ribbon by the Micro Squad. If you're interested in learning more about the Valkyrie Squad, visit us at thevalkyriesquad.com. If you're interested in learning more about the Micro Squad or Geek Gym for a class, visit us at themicrosquad.com. Make sure you're subscribed to the show wherever you get your podcasts from so you don't miss out. And if you like this week's episode, leave us a review on Apple Podcasts.